The birth of champagne. Introduction to champagne. Champagne, a sparkling wine known all over the world, is a symbol of celebration and elegance. When you hear the word champagne, you might think of the pop of the cork and the bubbles rising in a glass during special moments. But champagne is not just any sparkling wine. It's a unique drink that comes from a specific region in France, which is also called champagne. The special thing about champagne is the way it bubbles. Each bottle is full of tiny bubbles that give it a lively and light taste. When you pour champagne into a glass, you can see the bubbles racing to the top, and when you drink it, you can feel the fizz on your tongue. Champagne is made from grapes, but not just any grapes. The grapes for champagne are picked from vineyards where the soil and the weather work together to grow grapes that are just right for making this fizzy wine. People often drink champagne at weddings, New Year's Eve parties, and other celebrations. It's a drink that brings joy and marks important moments in life. In this story, we will explore the story of champagne. We'll learn where it comes from, how it's made, and why it has become such a special part of celebrations around the world. Let's raise our glasses to the fascinating world of champagne. History of champagne. The story of champagne is as intriguing as the drink itself. It begins in the Champagne region of France, a place with rolling hills and vineyards stretching as far as the eye can see. But how did this region become famous for the sparkling wine we know today? Long ago, wines from Champagne were not fizzy. They were still wines without bubbles. The bubbles in Champagne were actually seen as a mistake at first. The cold winters in this region would stop the wine from fermenting completely, leaving some sugar remaining. When spring arrived, the warmth would start the fermentation again, creating carbon dioxide and thus bubbles. The man often credited with perfecting champagne is Dom Pérignon, a monk who lived in the 17th century. While he did not invent champagne, he made many improvements to the production process. He developed a way to blend different grapes to improve the wine's flavor, and also introduced corks, which were used to seal the bottles and keep the bubbles in. Over time, champagne's popularity grew among the royalty and wealthy classes. It became a symbol of luxury and was sought after for its unique taste and the joyful experience of the popping cork and rising bubbles. Kings and queens would toast with champagne at their palaces, and it became a staple at grand balls and parties. By the 19th century, champagne production had become more refined, and the drink became associated with celebration and success. The invention of stronger glass bottles and better corks helped to preserve the bubbles and made it easier to transport champagne to other countries. Today, champagne is known around the world as the drink of choice for celebrations. The methods for making champagne have been passed down through generations, and although technology has advanced, the traditional ways of creating this special wine are still honored. In the next part of our story, we'll discover the unique region where champagne is made. We'll learn about the soil, the climate, and the grapes that combine to create the magic in every bottle of champagne. Join us as we take a closer look at the Champagne region and what makes it so special. The Champagne region. The Champagne region, located in the northeast of France, is the only place in the world where true champagne can be made. It's not just the name that makes this wine special. It's also the place where it's created. The soil, weather, and grapes in this region work together to make the perfect environment for champagne. This region has a special type of soil called chalk. Chalk is very good for growing grapes because it holds water well, which helps the vines during dry periods. It also reflects sunlight and provides good drainage, which is important for the health of the grapevines. The weather in the Champagne region can be quite tricky for farmers. It is often cold and can be unpredictable, but the grapevines here are strong. They have adapted to these conditions, and while the weather can be a challenge, it's also part of what gives Champagne grapes their unique taste. There are three main types of grapes used to make Champagne: Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Each type of grape adds something special to the Champagne. Chardonnay gives it brightness and a light, fruity flavor. Pinot Noir brings body and power, and Pinot Meunier adds richness and depth. The grapes are picked by hand in the fall when they are just ripe. This is a busy and exciting time in the Champagne region. Workers come from all over to help with the harvest, picking grapes from early morning until evening. After the grapes are picked, they are pressed gently to get the juice. This juice is then used to make the wine. The winemakers in Champagne take great care in this process, making sure that the juice is just right for turning into champagne. The Champagne region is not just known for its wine, but also for its beautiful landscapes and history. There are many small villages and towns among the vineyards, with old houses and churches. It's a place with a strong sense of tradition and community, where people are proud of the champagne they make. In our next section, we will explore how the grapes from these vineyards are turned into champagne. We'll learn about the steps that take the grapes from the vine to the bottle and how the bubbly wine we love is created. Join us as we uncover the fascinating process behind making champagne. Grapes and harvesting. The journey to making champagne begins with the grapes. In the Champagne region, the grape harvest is a crucial time of year. The grapes must be picked at the precise moment when they are ripe to ensure the best taste for the champagne. This usually happens between late September and early October, depending on the weather. The three main types of grapes used in Champagne, as we learned, are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Each type is picked carefully by hand. Harvesting by hand is important in Champagne because it keeps the grapes whole and undamaged. Machines could crush the grapes, which would start fermentation too early and change the flavor of the wine. After the grapes are picked, they are quickly taken to a place called a press house. Here, the grapes are gently pressed to get the juice out. This juice must be clear and pure, so the pressing is done slowly and carefully. The first press is called the cuvée, which is the best quality juice, and the second press is called the taillé, which is also good, but not as fine as the cuvée. The juice from the grapes is then put into large containers to start the first fermentation. This is where the sugar from the grapes turns into alcohol. This first fermentation is done at a cool temperature to keep the flavors fresh and delicate. The harvested grape's juice is watched over by the winemakers, who taste and check it to make sure it is just right. They decide when the fermentation has made the perfect base wine for champagne. This base wine is not yet bubbly. The famous bubbles in champagne come later in the process. During the harvest, the Champagne region is full of life and activity. There is a sense of excitement and celebration as the grapes that will become champagne are picked and pressed. The harvest is not just about making wine. It's about the community and the traditions that have been passed down through the years. In the next section, we will delve into the fascinating production process of champagne. We'll see how the base wine is transformed into the sparkling champagne through a second fermentation and learn about the careful steps that give champagne its bubbles and unique taste. Stay with us as we continue our journey into the effervescent world of champagne. Production process. After the harvest, the next step in making champagne is called the production process. This is where the still wine becomes the bubbly champagne we love. First, the base wine is created. It's a still wine, which means it doesn't have any bubbles yet. Winemakers taste and mix wines from different grapes, vineyards, and even years to make the perfect blend. This blend is very important because it will decide the final taste of the champagne. Next comes the second fermentation. This is when the wine gets its bubbles. Winemakers add a mixture of sugar and yeast to the base wine. This mixture is called the liqueur de tirage. The bottle is then sealed with a cap. The bottles are stored on their sides in a cool cellar. Here, the magic happens. The yeast eats the sugar, and this process creates alcohol and carbon dioxide, the gas that makes the bubbles. Because the bottle is sealed, the gas can't escape, so it dissolves into the wine and forms bubbles. This second fermentation takes at least 15 months, and for some special champagnes, it can take several years. After the second fermentation, there's some leftover yeast in the bottle. The next step is to remove this yeast, a process called disgorgement. The bottles are turned upside down so the yeast collects near the cap. The neck of the bottle is then frozen, which traps the yeast in a small ice plug. When the cap is removed, the pressure from the bubbles shoots out the ice plug, and the yeast is gone. Now the champagne is almost ready, but it needs a little more sugar. This is called dosage. A mixture of wine and sugar is added to the champagne. How much sugar is added depends on whether the champagne will be sweet or dry. After the dosage, the bottle is sealed with a cork and a wire cage to keep the cork in place. The last step is aging. The champagne rests in the cellar again, and this time it develops its final flavors. This aging can last a few months or several years, depending on the champagne. When the champagne has aged enough, it's ready to be labeled and sent out into the world. This whole process, from picking the grapes to selling the bottles, can take several years. It's a slow process, but it's worth the wait because it creates a drink that is full of history, tradition, and celebration. In the next section, we will learn about tasting champagne. We'll find out how to taste all the delicate flavors and why champagne is often the drink of choice for special occasions. Join us as we discover the art of enjoying champagne. Tasting champagne. Tasting champagne is an experience that involves all your senses. It's not just about drinking. It's about enjoying and noticing every part of what makes champagne special. Before you taste, you look at the champagne's color in the glass. It can range from pale gold to pink, depending on the type of grapes used. You'll see the bubbles rising quickly to the top, forming a ring of delicate foam. Now bring the glass to your nose. Take a slow, deep breath. You might smell flowers, fruit, or even fresh bread. These are the aromas of champagne, and they can tell you a lot about its quality and character. When you taste champagne, take just a small sip at first. Let it stay in your mouth for a few seconds. This lets you feel the bubbles and taste all the different flavors. Champagne can taste like citrus fruits, apples, or berries. Sometimes it can have a creamy taste or a hint of nuts or toast. After you swallow, notice the aftertaste, how long it lasts and how it feels. There are different kinds of champagne, from very dry to sweet. Brut is dry and is the most common type of champagne. Demi-sec is a bit sweeter and doux is the sweetest. The type you choose depends on your taste and what you're eating with it. Drinking champagne is often part of celebrating special events like weddings or anniversaries. Its festive bubbles and elegant taste add to the joyful feeling of these moments. But you don't need a special occasion to enjoy champagne. It can also be a nice drink to have with a meal, as it can complement many different types of food. To truly appreciate champagne, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to pay attention to the details. Like with all good things, the more you notice, the more you can enjoy. In the next section, we will explore the role of champagne in culture and how it has become a symbol of luxury and celebration in many parts of the world. Stay with us as we discover more about the cultural significance of champagne. Champagne in culture. Champagne is not just a drink. It has become a cultural icon. This sparkling wine is often seen in movies and television shows being enjoyed during grand celebrations and significant moments. People think of champagne as a way to celebrate achievements, milestones, and new beginnings. It's a tradition to open a bottle of champagne by popping the cork at weddings on New Year's Eve, or to celebrate a victory. This tradition started in France but has spread around the world. In many cultures, having champagne shows that an event is important and worth celebrating. It has become a symbol of success and happiness. When athletes win championships, they often spray champagne to show their joy. Champagne has also inspired artists. Painters have captured its lively bubbles and joyful moments in their art. Writers often mention champagne in stories and poems to set a scene of elegance and festivity. Musicians sing about champagne to express a feeling of luxury and celebration. The image of champagne has been used by companies to sell other products too. They want their products to have the same feeling of quality and celebration that people associate with champagne. This shows how powerful the idea of champagne is in our culture. Modern trends and sustainability. Today, people are thinking about how to enjoy champagne while also caring for the environment. Many champagne producers are now using sustainable practices. They try to use fewer chemicals on their grapes and recycle the water and materials they use in making champagne. Producers are also looking at how to make champagne bottles lighter. This can help reduce the cost and pollution from transporting them. Some are even experimenting with organic farming, which is better for the land and can produce grapes that make high-quality champagne. These changes show that the champagne industry can keep its traditions while also looking to the future. It's about enjoying the special moments that champagne represents in a way that will allow us to continue celebrating for years to come. The future of champagne looks sparkling bright. The future of champagne looks sparkling bright. As people around the world become more interested in where their drinks come from and how they are made, champagne makers are responding with innovation and care. We might see more organic champagne, which is made without using chemicals that can harm the environment. There is also a growing interest in small producers who make unique, handcrafted champagnes. These producers often use traditional methods and focus on quality over quantity. Technology will also play a role in the future of champagne. From the vineyard to the cellar, new tools can help winemakers understand their crops and create the best champagne possible. Apps and websites can help people learn more about champagne and even order their favorite bottles directly from the producers. But no matter what changes, the heart of champagne will remain the same. It will continue to be a drink that brings a sense of occasion and joy. Whether for a big celebration or a quiet toast to the day, champagne will always be there to add a little sparkle. Conclusion. Champagne has taken us on a journey from the vineyards of France to celebrations around the world. It's a drink with a rich history and a bright future. As we've seen, champagne is more than just bubbles in a glass. It's a symbol of craftsmanship, culture, and joy. It's a reminder to savor the special moments in life. So, the next time you hear the pop of a champagne cork, think of the story behind this remarkable drink and raise your glass to the dedication and tradition that continue to make champagne a timeless treasure.